Have you noticed that some people don't fight their minds? They speak, and their mind moves. They decide to wake up, they rise. They decide to focus, the noise disappears. No arguments, no inner chaos, no mental rebellion. While others negotiate with their thoughts, these people command them. And most people believe a lie. They say those people were born disciplined. But what if discipline isn't talent? What if it's training? What if your mind doesn't ignore you because it's broken, but because it was never taught to listen? And what if the people who look powerful inside aren't stronger than you, but they're just trained differently? Because centuries ago, warriors didn't rely on motivation. They built obedience. Not obedience to others, but obedience to the mind itself. And one warrior system changed everything. A system so simple and so dangerous that once your mind learns it, it never disobeys again. But this system begins with a truth most people refuse to accept. If you think your mind is who you are, then you will never be able to control it. Before moving forward to the topic, I want to ask you a question. What is the one habit you keep running back to, even though you know it's destroying the person you're trying to become? Be honest. Write it in the comments. This is your first act of control. Back to the topic. Chapter 1. The separation. In ancient Japan, students were first taught one truth. You are not your thoughts. The mind was not treated as identity. Instead, it was treated as a weapon that must be trained, a weapon that must be commanded. Because if the sword controls the warrior is already dead. So they created separation. Observer in mind. One who feels, one who commands. The mind became the horse. The self became the rider. Not through force, not through violence, but through awareness. They watched thoughts like clouds. They didn't chase them. They didn't argue. They didn't suppress. They observed. And slowly, something changed. It started following. Not because it was forced, but because it learned who the master was. And this is where real control begins. Because the next stage isn't about calming the mind. It's about rewiring what the mind obeys. Chapter 2. The training of obedience. In ancient Japan, discipline was never taught through motivation. It was taught through structure. Because motivation is emotion, and emotion is unstable. So they removed choice. Not freedom, but pattern. Same wake time, same walk path, same training hour, same silence. Not because it was easy, but because repetition rewires the mind. The mind learns through rhythm, not willpower. The body learns through ritual, not excitement. This is why they used rituals. Simple, boring, sacred. Because boredom kills resistance. And when resistance dies, obedience is born. Not obedience to rules, not obedience to people, but obedience to self-command. They didn't ask, do I feel like training? They asked, what is the ritual? They didn't ask, am I motivated? They asked, what is the pattern? Because discipline is not emotion. It is architecture. And once the structure exists, the mind has no escape route. But obedience alone is not mastery. Because the final stage isn't discipline. It's identity transformation. Chapter 3. Becoming the path. In ancient Japan, the highest discipline was never force. It was fusion, not doing the practice, but becoming the practice. When the ritual becomes identity, there is no resistance left to fight, because the mind cannot rebel against what it believes it is. This is why masters never spoke of discipline. A fisherman does not force himself to fish. A monk does not force himself to pray, not because it is easy, but because it is natural. When identity changes, effort dissolves. When identity shifts, pain loses meaning. This is the final stage of discipline. No internal conflict, no arguments in the mind, no negotiations with comfort, only movement, only action. This is why the samurai trained in silence, not to grow stronger, but to grow simpler. Because simplicity removes hesitation, and hesitation is where discipline dies. They didn't build willpower. They removed friction. They didn't chase motivation. They eliminated choice. And when choice disappears, action becomes automatic. But this still isn't the highest form of mastery. Because the final transformation isn't discipline, isn't identity. It is inner stillness that commands action. Final chapter. The mind that does not resist. In ancient Japan, The highest warriors were not driven by force. They were guided by stillness. Not silence outside, but silence inside. Because a quiet mind does not argue. It does not delay. It does not negotiate with fear. It does not debate with comfort. When the mind is still, action becomes natural. No pressure, no resistance. This is Taoist power. Flow over force. Not control through tension, but control through alignment. When your mind stops fighting reality, reality starts moving with you. When your thoughts stop resisting effort, discipline becomes peace. This is the end of struggle and the beginning of power. Not the power to dominate the world, but the power to command yourself. Because the strongest mind is the one that does not resist. And the greatest discipline is not forcing action, but becoming the kind of person who moves without inner war. Because when the mind is still, the body obeys, and life begins to flow instead of fight.